The rain drizzled softly against the window, a familiar Portland symphony that echoed my inner turmoil. I stood in my grandfather's living room, surrounded by boxes filled with memories and remnants of a life I had just left behind. The scent of old wood and musty books lingered in the air, mingling with the faint aroma of coffee brewing in the kitchen. This was supposed to be a temporary refuge after my divorce, a place to regroup and find myself again. Instead, it felt like a trap. I unpacked slowly, each item reminding me of what I had lost. My ex-husband's laughter still echoed in my mind, though it felt distant now. I glanced at the framed photographs on the mantelpiece, my grandfather with his friends during happier times, their smiles frozen in time. Among them was Harold, my grandfather's closest friend. I remembered him as a warm presence from my childhood, always sharing stories that made us laugh. "Will you be staying long?" Harold had asked when he first arrived to help with the move-in process. His voice carried that same warmth, but there was something else beneath it, a hint of curiosity or perhaps something more complicated. "I'm not sure," I replied, avoiding his gaze. The truth was I didn't want to think about how long I would be here or what that meant for me. As days turned into weeks, I settled into a routine that felt both comforting and stifling. Mornings began with coffee at the local cafe down the street where baristas greeted me by name. The vibrant energy of Portland's coffee culture became my solace amidst the chaos of my emotions. Yet, even as I found small joys in these moments, an unsettling tension simmered beneath the surface whenever Harold was around. One afternoon, while folding laundry in my grandfather's sunlit living room, I heard Harold enter through the back door. He called out cheerfully as he made his way to the kitchen. "I brought some pastries from that new bakery." "Thank you," I replied absently, folding another shirt while trying to ignore the fluttering sensation in my stomach. Harold appeared moments later, holding a box filled with fresh pastries and an easy smile that lit up his face. "You have to try these," he insisted as he set them on the table between us. I took one hesitantly and bit into it. Its sweetness flooded my senses and momentarily distracted me from everything else swirling inside me. We chatted about trivial matters, his gardening exploits and my attempts at cooking, yet there was an undercurrent of something unspoken hanging between us. Later that evening, after dinner and some shared laughter over old family stories with my grandfather, we found ourselves alone again in the living room. The soft glow from a single lamp cast shadows around us as we sat on opposite ends of the couch. "Do you think you'll ever feel at home here?" Harold asked suddenly, his tone serious yet gentle. I hesitated before answering. "I don't know if this will ever feel like home again." My voice trembled slightly as vulnerability crept in. He leaned forward slightly, his expression shifting to one of understanding mixed with something deeper, something that made me acutely aware of how close we were sitting together now. "I get it," he said quietly. "Change is hard." In that moment, our eyes locked for what felt like an eternity. The air thickened around us, every heartbeat echoed louder than before. A part of me wanted to lean closer and explore whatever this connection might be, but fear held me back. "You should probably go check on Grandpa," I suggested awkwardly after what felt like too long of silence. "Right," he replied slowly but didn't move immediately. Instead he lingered for just another moment before finally standing up. After Harold left the room, I sank back against the couch cushions and closed my eyes briefly to collect myself. This wasn't supposed to happen, not here and not now when everything felt so fragile already. Days passed uneasily after that encounter. Each meeting with Harold became charged with unspoken words and lingering glances that left me unsettled yet intrigued at once. One afternoon while preparing dinner together in the kitchen, a space filled with warmth from both sunlight streaming through windows and our shared laughter, I accidentally brushed against him while reaching for a spice jar high on a shelf. The touch sent shockwaves through me, a reminder of how very much alive I still was beneath layers of grief and uncertainty. and before either of us could react properly or pull away entirely, our eyes met again with undeniable intensity. "I'm sorry," I stammered quickly but didn't step back. Instead, we stood there suspended between hesitation and longing until finally breaking apart awkwardly when my grandfather entered unexpectedly minutes later. "Dinner smells great," he announced cheerfully without noticing anything amiss between us. As night fell over Portland once more and shadows danced along walls filled with memories both comforting yet constraining, I lay awake pondering everything swirling inside me. Confusion over newfound feelings mixed with guilt over their very existence alongside fears surrounding this unexpected attraction towards someone so close yet so far removed from what society deemed acceptable. How could this happen? How could attraction bloom amidst all this chaos? The rain continued its gentle patter outside as if mirroring my conflicted thoughts while sleep eluded me entirely, a storm brewing within mirrored by one outside, the two colliding somewhere deep within myself where clarity seemed impossible to find. The morning light filtered through the curtains, casting soft shadows across the room. I lay there, tangled in sheets and thoughts, my heart racing from the events of the previous night. The kiss lingered on my lips, a memory both sweet and haunting. How had we crossed that line? As I shifted in bed, I could hear my grandfather moving around in the kitchen below. The familiar sounds of clinking dishes and the scent of brewing coffee wafted up to me. It was a stark reminder of reality, pulling me away from the warmth of what had just happened. I needed to face this day, whatever it might bring. I threw on a robe and made my way downstairs, each step heavy with anticipation and dread. My grandfather greeted me with a warm smile, his hair tousled and his eyes bright with morning cheer. "Good morning. You're just in time for coffee," he said, pouring a steaming cup. "Thanks, Grandpa," I replied, forcing a smile as I took the mug from him. The warmth seeped into my hands but did little to thaw the chill in my heart. As I sipped my coffee, I tried to shake off the remnants of last night's intimacy, both exhilarating and terrifying. The kitchen felt different, it held secrets now that had been unspoken until that moment. My mind drifted back to him, my grandfather's friend, wondering if he was still asleep or wrestling with his own thoughts. "Have you seen John this morning?" I asked casually, hoping to sound nonchalant. "He's still upstairs," my grandfather replied, oblivious to the tension crackling in the air. "Said he wasn't feeling well last night." "Is he okay?" "Just an old backache," he shrugged. "He'll be fine." I nodded but felt an ache inside that had nothing to do with physical pain. There was something about John that stirred feelings within me, a mix of comfort and conflict that left me breathless. After breakfast, I decided to step outside for some fresh air. The rain had stopped overnight, leaving everything glistening under the sun's gentle touch. Portland was waking up around me. People were out walking their dogs or sipping coffee at nearby cafes. I took a deep breath and let myself soak it all in. But even as I wandered through the streets lined with blooming cherry blossoms, my mind kept drifting back to John, the way his smile ignited something deep within me and how our shared moments felt like stolen treasures. Later that afternoon, while tidying up in the living room, I heard footsteps behind me. Turning around, I found John leaning against the doorway with an amused look on his face. "Need any help?" he asked lightly. I hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Sure, if you don't mind." We worked side by side in silence for a few moments before our eyes met across the room, a spark igniting once more between us. The air felt thick with unspoken words as we continued arranging books on shelves and fluffing cushions on chairs. "I didn't mean to put you in an awkward position last night," he finally said softly. "It wasn't just you," I replied quietly. "It takes two." Before I could finish my thought, he stepped closer. Our proximity sent shivers down my spine, a mix of fear and longing swirling within me. "I don't know what this is between us," he murmured as his gaze locked onto mine. I swallowed hard, Words eluded me as emotions surged beneath the surface like a tidal wave threatening to break free. In that moment of vulnerability, caught between desire and reason, we kissed again. It was tender yet electric, a fleeting connection that left us both breathless once more. Reality crashed down around us almost immediately after our lips parted, an unspoken understanding hanging heavily in the air between us. "What are we doing?" I whispered as panic surged through me. "I don't know," he admitted honestly but without regret etched on his face. "But it feels real." The weight of our actions pressed down upon me like lead, every instinct screamed at me to pull away, to run from this forbidden comfort we were weaving together amidst chaos, but something deeper urged me to stay rooted in place instead. We stood there for what felt like an eternity before breaking apart entirely, each retreating into our own thoughts while attempting to navigate this new terrain we had unwittingly entered together. Later that evening, after dinner with Grandpa who remained blissfully unaware of our turmoil, John suggested taking a walk along the riverfront, a beautiful spot known for its picturesque views at sunset. As we strolled side by side beneath blooming trees illuminated by golden light filtering through branches overhead, it felt surreal being so close yet so far from understanding what lay ahead for us both amidst these tangled emotions swirling within each heartbeat echoing loudly against silence surrounding us now. "I've been thinking about how life changes unexpectedly," John mused as we paused near one of Portland's iconic bridges arching over water reflecting orange hues dancing across ripples below us. I nodded slowly, uncertainty gnawed at my insides. The fear of losing everything if things went awry loomed large over every thought swirling through my mind now filled with questions unanswered yet begging for clarity. "What do you want?" he asked suddenly, his voice steady yet vulnerable all at once piercing through layers built around guarded hearts seeking solace amid turmoil unfolding before us both. "I want stability," slipped out before realizing its weight carried double meanings hidden beneath surface-level desires battling against deeper truths lurking just beyond reach waiting patiently until ready enough confront them openly without fear clouding judgment anymore. John's expression softened as if sensing cracks forming within walls built cautiously over years spent navigating life alone without companionship or love lingering nearby. "Me too," he replied quietly after pausing long enough letting silence stretch between us allowing thoughts take shape without rushing into conclusions too quickly risking everything already fragile hanging delicately above abyss threatening plunge downwards forevermore should mistakes happen again. As dusk settled over Portland painting skies vibrant shades blending beautifully together, I couldn't shake feeling something monumental shifted inside myself tonight opening doors previously sealed shut long ago yearning desperately find ways heal scars etched deeply upon soul searching endlessly for paths forward leading toward brighter tomorrows filled laughter, shared moments creating memories lasting lifetimes ahead. But just then, a familiar figure appeared approaching from distance drawing nearer catching sight easily recognizable even amidst dimming light cast shadows dancing playfully along pavement beneath feet moving swiftly forward unaware impending storm brewing silently waiting strike. Unexpectedly should circumstances align perfectly wrong way sending ripples crashing against fragile foundation built only moments earlier. My heart raced anew realizing consequences looming large ahead threatening unravel everything built thus far leaving trails broken promises behind forever haunting memories replaying endlessly reminding choices made could alter futures unforeseen beyond comprehension grasped tightly now slipping away far too quickly. The morning sun crept through the curtains, casting a soft glow across the room. I lay there, tangled in the sheets, an unsettling mix of warmth and dread settling in my chest. The events of the previous night replayed in my mind like a film stuck on repeat. We had shared laughter, stories, and a connection that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. Our lips met unexpectedly, igniting a spark that seemed to defy reason. I pushed myself up, trying to shake off the remnants of sleep and confusion. There was no denying the thrill of those moments together, yet the weight of their implications pressed heavily on my shoulders. How could I navigate this newfound intimacy while living under my grandfather's roof? The thought alone felt like an insurmountable challenge. In the kitchen, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air. My grandfather was already up, his newspaper spread out before him as he sipped his morning cup. I offered him a smile, hoping to mask the turmoil swirling inside me. He looked up from his reading, his eyes twinkling with warmth. "Morning. Sleep well?" he asked casually. "Like a rock," I replied, pouring myself a cup. The truth felt like a betrayal lodged in my throat. As I sat down across from him, I could feel my heart racing at the thought of what might happen if he discovered what had transpired between me and his friend. It was one thing to feel attraction, it was another entirely to act on it, and even more complicated when family ties were involved. The door creaked open behind me as he entered, my grandfather's friend. He looked slightly disheveled but undeniably charming as always. His presence sent a jolt through me, memories of our shared laughter and stolen glances flooded back with vivid clarity. "Good morning," he said cheerily, glancing between us before settling into a chair beside mine. "Coffee?" I offered, trying to maintain composure while feeling acutely aware of our proximity. "Yes, please," he replied with that easy smile that made my heart flutter in ways I couldn't quite comprehend. As we exchanged small talk about mundane things, weather forecasts and neighborhood gossip, I felt an undercurrent of tension building between us. The casual banter was laced with something deeper, unspoken words hung thick in the air around us like an invisible thread connecting our souls. After breakfast, we moved to the living room for some quiet time together, my grandfather retreating to his favorite armchair with a book while we settled onto the couch across from him. It felt surreal being so close yet so far away from each other emotionally. Our hearts were racing beneath layers of hesitation and fear. "I've been thinking," he started tentatively, drawing my attention fully toward him. "About how life can change so quickly." I nodded slowly, sensing where this conversation might lead. "It does," I murmured softly. "Sometimes you find yourself in unexpected places," he continued thoughtfully. "And sometimes you meet people who make you question everything." His gaze held mine steadily as if daring me to respond honestly, to peel back layers of pretense and reveal what lay beneath. My pulse quickened at his words, they resonated deeply within me as if they were meant for only me to hear. "I suppose that's true," I replied cautiously, searching for clarity amid swirling emotions threatening to engulf me whole. He leaned closer now. There was an intensity in his eyes that sent shivers down my spine, a magnetic pull drawing me nearer despite every rational thought urging caution. "What are we doing here?" he asked quietly, vulnerability etched across his features as if baring his soul for all to see. The question hung heavy between us, a fragile bridge spanning two worlds filled with uncertainty and desire. My heart raced as I contemplated how much honesty would be too much for either of us to bear under these circumstances. "I don't know," I admitted finally after what felt like an eternity stretched thin between breaths shared only by us two, my voice barely above a whisper but resonating loud enough within this confined space where boundaries blurred dangerously close together. He reached out tentatively, then brushed his fingers against mine, a simple touch igniting flames long buried deep within my heart, yearning for acknowledgement after years spent hiding away from such feelings altogether. It was electric. The way our fingers intertwined sent shockwaves through me that shattered any remaining barriers built over years spent safeguarding against vulnerability or heartache that had once defined my existence before finding refuge here among family again after everything fell apart around me not so long ago. Time slowed as we leaned closer, our breaths mingling in anticipation until suddenly reality crashed back like thunder overhead, breaking through fragile moments suspended midair, threatening collapse at any moment should someone intervene uninvited into this private sanctuary carved out just for us two alone amid chaos surrounding life outside these walls. Then came footsteps echoing down hallways, familiar yet foreign sounds snapping sharply back into focus, reminding us both where we stood, precariously balanced on edge, teetering toward unknown consequences looming large ahead, waiting patiently just beyond reach. Hey! What's going on in here? My grandfather's voice boomed unexpectedly from outside before entering fully into view, catching sight immediately upon seeing us so close together on couch. The very embodiment of shock etched across features weathered by time yet still holding remnants youthful curiosity alive within them despite years passed since first meeting each other all those decades ago. My heart dropped into my stomach as reality came crashing down around us like waves against jagged cliffs, eroding foundations built upon trust, loyalty, love shared over years spent navigating life's unpredictable currents together. My grandfather's voice echoed in my ears, a jarring reminder of the reality that had been lurking just beneath the surface of our newfound intimacy. The shock on his face was palpable, and I could only imagine the thoughts racing through his mind. I shifted slightly away from my grandfather's friend, trying to mask the vulnerability that washed over me. We were just talking," I stammered, the words feeling inadequate in the face of the truth. My heart raced as I searched for an explanation that wouldn't sound absurd. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. "Talking?" My grandfather's tone was laced with disbelief. "Is that what you call it?" He crossed his arms, a protective stance that made me feel like a child caught sneaking cookies before dinner. I glanced at my companion, who seemed equally at a loss for words. The moment hung in the air, heavy with implications and unspoken feelings. My mind raced back to our late-night conversations filled with shared stories and laughter, moments that had slowly transformed into something deeper. "We were just sharing some thoughts about life," he finally managed to say, attempting to diffuse the situation while still holding my gaze. There was an understanding between us, a silent acknowledgement of what had transpired before my grandfather walked in. "Life? At this hour?" My grandfather raised an eyebrow, skepticism dripping from every word. "You've both been through a lot lately, maybe it's best to keep things platonic." The word felt like a slap across my face. Platonic? Couldn't he see? This wasn't just about physical attraction, it was about companionship and understanding, two souls navigating their way through loneliness together. "I think we all deserve some comfort," I replied softly, trying to convey the complexity of our connection without revealing too much. "Especially after everything." My grandfather's expression softened slightly at my words, but he still looked uneasy. "Comfort can be found in many ways," he replied cautiously. "But sometimes it leads us down paths we shouldn't take." I felt guilt creeping in again as I stood there between two generations, one rooted in tradition and expectations, and another yearning for freedom and connection. The weight of my choices pressed heavily on my shoulders. As days turned into weeks following that morning, I found myself grappling with those feelings more than ever. Each interaction with him became charged with unspoken words, every shared glance lingered longer than necessary. We spent evenings together on the porch as twilight descended over Portland, sipping coffee and exchanging stories about our pasts, his tales woven with nostalgia while mine were tinged with recent heartbreak. One night as we sat beneath a star-studded sky, I opened up about my divorce, the feelings of inadequacy that had plagued me for so long. He listened intently, nodding at every pause as if he understood every nuance of my pain. "I've been alone for quite some time now," he admitted quietly after I finished sharing my story. "It's easy to feel lost when there's no one around who truly understands." His honesty struck a chord within me, a shared loneliness binding us closer together despite societal norms whispering disapproval in our ears. That night marked a turning point for us both. We spent hours talking until sleepiness began to creep in around the edges of our conversation. Eventually, we retreated inside but not before exchanging one last lingering look, a silent promise hanging between us like dew on grass at dawn. In those moments leading up to sleep, everything shifted once more into uncharted territory. Desire mingled seamlessly with companionship as we stepped into unknown waters together. No longer merely friends or acquaintances but something more profound altogether. And then came that moment when we spent the night together, not just physically entwined but emotionally vulnerable as well, sharing secrets under blankets while outside rain pattered against windows like whispers urging us forward into something new yet terrifyingly familiar all at once. Yet even amidst this newfound closeness lurked shadows of guilt and apprehension. What would happen if anyone found out? Would they judge us harshly or simply dismiss our connection as folly born from desperation? Those questions haunted me as daylight broke over Portland's skyline each morning, a reminder that no matter how comforting this bond felt right now, consequences loomed large on the horizon waiting patiently for their moment to strike. As autumn settled over Oregon's landscape painting trees gold and crimson hues reminiscent of fleeting moments shared between us, each day brought fresh uncertainty along with its beauty. Whispers exchanged over steaming mugs filled with coffee brewed strong enough to wake even weary souls from slumber. I began spending more time alone during daylight hours, wandering through local festivals bustling with laughter and music echoing against cobblestones lined by quaint shops selling handmade crafts while trying desperately not to think about him or what lay ahead should anyone discover our secret rendezvous hidden behind closed doors at my grandfather's home. But avoiding him proved increasingly difficult. Each encounter felt charged with anticipation until finally one afternoon after returning from yet another festival filled with vibrant colors, I found him waiting by the porch swing where we often sat together deep into twilight hours discussing everything under stars above us, illuminating paths ahead illuminated only by moonlight filtering through branches overhead, casting shadows across our intertwined lives now forever altered by choices made amidst chaos surrounding us, both recently experienced firsthand. "Can we talk?" His voice broke through silence, wrapping around me like warmth radiating from sun-kissed skin glistening upon arrival after long journey homeward bound. Before I could respond fully, however, footsteps echoed behind me, abruptly breaking tension, filling air between us entirely, leaving little room left untouched by inevitable unraveling looming overhead, waiting patiently for its chance reveal itself before morning light kissed horizon once more, ushering forth new day filled uncertainty awaiting those brave enough venture forth despite fears lingering quietly beneath surface, still yearning find solace within embrace offered freely without hesitation, lingering doubt clouding judgment concerning future paths chosen henceforth. The morning light streamed through the window, illuminating the room with an almost harsh brightness. I lay there, tangled in sheets, my heart racing as I processed the events of the previous night. My mind flickered back to our shared moments, the laughter, the conversations that felt like they could stretch into eternity. Yet now, all I could think about was the looming confrontation with my grandfather. As I got out of bed, the coolness of the floor sent a shiver up my spine. I wrapped myself in a robe, trying to gather my thoughts. The house felt alive with sounds, the kettle whistling in the kitchen, birds chirping outside. But beneath those familiar noises lay an undercurrent of tension that made my stomach churn. I stepped into the hallway and paused outside the kitchen door. My grandfather's voice carried through, deep and steady as he spoke to someone on the phone. The familiarity of his tone brought a wave of nostalgia mixed with anxiety. What would he say if he knew? Would he understand? Or would he be disappointed? Taking a deep breath, I pushed open the door. My grandfather turned to me, his expression shifting from surprise to concern as he noticed my disheveled appearance. "Good morning," he said cautiously, eyes narrowing slightly as if trying to gauge my state of mind. "Morning," I replied softly, avoiding his gaze and focusing on pouring myself a cup of coffee. The rich aroma filled the air, providing a momentary comfort amidst my swirling thoughts. "I hope you slept well," he continued, attempting to maintain a light tone. "You were up late last night." I nodded but didn't respond further. The weight of unspoken words hung heavily between us. Just then, my phone buzzed on the counter, a message from Sarah, my closest friend back in Seattle. She had always been my confidant during turbulent times. "Hey. How are you holding up? Let's catch up soon." I smiled at her message but hesitated before responding. It felt trivial compared to what was happening in my life now, this chaotic blend of emotions and choices that seemed to defy logic. "Everything all right?" My grandfather's voice pulled me back into reality. "Yeah," I said quickly, forcing a smile as I took a sip of coffee. "Just a friend checking in." He nodded but didn't seem convinced. "You know you can talk to me about anything," he offered gently. I wanted to believe him but felt an invisible barrier between us, one built from years of family expectations and unspoken rules about what was acceptable behavior at our age. Just then, footsteps echoed from behind me, his footsteps, and before I could fully process it, there he was in the doorway, John, my grandfather's friend and now more than just that in my life. His presence sent an electric jolt through me, memories of our shared moments rushed back, our laughter echoing through this very house. "Morning," John said casually as if nothing had happened between us. "Morning," I managed to reply while feeling heat creep up my cheeks. This was too much, too soon for him to be here when everything still felt so raw and undefined. My grandfather shifted awkwardly between us before breaking into conversation about mundane topics, weather forecasts and upcoming family gatherings, but his eyes darted between John and me like he sensed something deeper beneath our surface interactions. As they spoke, I felt increasingly trapped within this domestic scene that was supposed to offer comfort but instead amplified my internal conflict. Did they sense it? The tension crackling like static electricity? In an attempt to escape further scrutiny, I excused myself under the pretense of needing some fresh air and stepped out onto the porch. The crisp Portland morning greeted me with its invigorating chill, a stark contrast to the warmth inside where secrets simmered just beneath our conversations. Leaning against the railing, I inhaled deeply, letting nature ground me amidst this emotional turmoil. My thoughts drifted back to Sarah's message, a reminder that life continued outside these walls despite everything happening within them. Suddenly, footsteps approached from behind again. It was John joining me on the porch. He stood beside me quietly for a moment before speaking softly. "You okay?" His voice held genuine concern laced with familiarity that made it hard not to lean into his presence for comfort. "I don't know," I admitted honestly while staring out at the trees swaying gently in rhythm with Portland's breeze. "Everything feels so complicated." "I get it." He leaned against the railing next to me but kept space between us, a silent acknowledgement of boundaries yet unspoken desires lingering just beneath our skin. "We shouldn't have crossed that line," I murmured more to myself than him as guilt washed over me once again like waves crashing against jagged rocks, relentless reminders of how precarious our situation had become since we spent that night together. John sighed heavily beside me, his frustration palpable even without words exchanged aloud between us, yet again revealing shared vulnerability we both faced within this peculiar relationship forged amid familial ties and societal expectations weighing down upon us like heavy chains, binding our hearts together while simultaneously pulling them apart further still. "I'm not ashamed," he finally said quietly after what felt like hours stretched thin between breaths taken cautiously around each other's truths laid bare beneath stars shining brightly overhead only moments prior. "But we need to be careful." His words struck chords deep within, resonating echoes reminding me why this connection frightened yet excited me all at once, the thrill mingling dangerously with fear threatening everything else left untouched until now. Before I could respond fully, however, footsteps echoed again behind us, abruptly breaking tension, filling air between us entirely, leaving little room left untouched by inevitable unraveling looming overhead, waiting patiently for its chance reveal itself before morning light kissed horizon once more, ushering forth new day-filled uncertainty awaiting those brave enough venture forth despite fears lingering quietly beneath surface, still yearning find solace within embrace offered freely without hesitation, lingering doubt clouding judgment concerning future paths chosen henceforth. The door creaked open behind us, revealing my grandfather stepping onto the porch looking both concerned and curious about what we were discussing so intently moments prior. "What are you two talking about?" His voice held an edge, a protective instinct flaring up as if sensing something deeper than mere conversation lingered just beyond reach, waiting impatiently for acknowledgement long overdue. The air grew thick around us, silence stretched taut as we exchanged glances laden with unspoken words threatening chaos if not handled delicately. And then it happened, the moment where everything changed forever. "I think we need to talk about last night." My grandfather's eyes narrowed slightly, disbelief mingled with concern etched across his features, challenging both John and myself, simultaneously forcing truth into light whether ready or not. Suddenly, all those fears came rushing back full force, colliding violently against hopes, clashing loudly within heart, desperate, seeking clarity amidst confusion, swirling dangerously close, threatening drown everything left untouched thus far. I took a deep breath, the weight of my grandfather's gaze pressing down on me. The morning light streamed through the kitchen window, illuminating the remnants of last night's decisions. I could still feel the warmth of John's presence lingering in the air, a stark contrast to the tension that now filled the room. "Do you have something to say?" My grandfather's voice was steady but edged with an urgency that demanded honesty. I glanced at John, who stood a few steps away, his expression a mixture of concern and uncertainty. The silence stretched between us like a taut wire, ready to snap. "Last night," I began hesitantly, my voice faltering as I searched for the right words. "It was unexpected." "Unexpected?" My grandfather's brow furrowed deeper. "You mean to say you and John?" "Yes," I interjected, cutting him off before he could finish. "We kissed." The admission hung in the air like a confession, heavy and undeniable. John shifted his weight from one foot to another, his eyes darting between us as though he were caught in an emotional crossfire. "I didn't mean for it to happen," he finally said, his voice low but steady. "We were just..." "Just what?" My grandfather challenged him, arms crossed over his chest. "You were just sharing a moment? Or was it something more?" The question pierced through me, igniting a mix of anger and guilt within me. I had sought comfort in John's presence during this tumultuous time, but now it felt like standing on shaky ground with no safety net beneath me. "I don't know," I admitted quietly, feeling my resolve waver. "But it made me feel something I haven't felt in a long time." My grandfather sighed deeply, rubbing his temples as if trying to soothe away the tension that had built up in the room. "This isn't just about feelings, it's about choices and consequences." As I sat there absorbing his words, memories flooded back, of happier times spent alone at festivals or cozy coffee shops scattered throughout Portland. Those moments had been my refuge after my marriage ended, but they also reminded me of how fragile happiness could be. "Maybe we should just forget about it," John suggested tentatively, breaking through my reverie. "No." The word escaped before I could think better of it. "I don't want to forget." My grandfather leaned forward slightly, there was concern etched into every line of his face now. "What do you want then? To pursue this? To risk everything for something uncertain?" The question struck me hard. I had been grappling with that very thought since our first kiss, a moment that had shifted everything between us into uncharted territory. "I want clarity," I said finally, searching for strength within myself. "I want to understand if this connection is real or just a fleeting escape." John nodded slowly as if contemplating my words seriously for the first time since we'd entered this conversation. "Then let's go to that festival today," he suggested softly. "It might help clear our heads." A local festival was happening just outside our neighborhood, a celebration of art and community filled with laughter and vibrant colors that seemed almost too cheerful given our current predicament. "I don't know if that's a good idea," my grandfather interjected cautiously. "It might be exactly what we need," John countered gently but firmly. After a moment's hesitation, my grandfather relented with an exasperated sigh. "Fine, but don't think this changes anything." As we prepared to leave for the festival later that afternoon, an unsettling mix of excitement and dread coursed through me. Each step felt heavy yet charged with possibility. The atmosphere at the festival was electric. Laughter echoed around us while colorful stalls lined the streets filled with local crafts and delicious food smells wafted through the air like an invitation to indulge in joy. "This is nice," John said beside me as we wandered through the crowd together, his presence both comforting and unnerving all at once. "Yes," I replied softly as we paused by an art installation showcasing local artists' work, a vibrant mural depicting community unity and resilience against adversity. But even amidst all this beauty surrounding us, shadows lurked just beneath the surface, the weight of unspoken truths hanging heavily between us waiting for acknowledgement. As we continued walking hand in hand through throngs of people enjoying their day without care or concern for what lay beneath their smiles, something caught my eye, a familiar face amongst strangers, Mia, the friend who had always been supportive during my divorce journey. "Mia," I called out instinctively as she turned toward us looking surprised yet delighted upon seeing me there with John at such an unexpected event. "Oh wow. What are you doing here?" she exclaimed warmly, wrapping her arms around me in greeting before turning her gaze toward John, curiously assessing him closely before offering her hand politely despite any underlying tension she may have sensed between us, both instantly recognizing our connection without needing further explanation. "We're just enjoying some time out together." Mia smiled knowingly, but then her expression shifted slightly as she glanced back towards John again, lingering over him longer than necessary before asking casually, "So how long have you two been?" Before she could finish her sentence, however, an abrupt shout rang out nearby, drawing everyone's attention away from our conversation momentarily. "Hey! Is anyone missing a wallet?" The sudden commotion diverted focus as people began milling around trying to locate its owner amidst laughter turning into confusion, quickly overshadowing whatever tension still loomed between us moments earlier. Yet even after things settled down again, I couldn't shake off feeling uneasy about being exposed publicly alongside someone whose past remained shrouded in mystery. What did Mia mean by how long? I whispered under breath, glancing sideways toward John, who seemed lost deep within thought, himself perhaps contemplating same implications surrounding our relationship now laid bare before others, witnessing it unfold firsthand, instead hidden behind closed doors where secrets thrived unchecked. His gaze met mine, briefly revealing uncertainty mirrored within those depths, leaving questions unanswered, still echoing loudly inside, heart battling against fears rooted deeply within past experiences, haunting every step forward taken together. As dusk began settling over Portland, casting long shadows across festival grounds, I found myself standing at crossroads, unsure which path would lead toward brighter tomorrows or darker nights ahead, filled only regrets left unspoken forevermore. The air in the house felt thick with unspoken words, a tension that clung to every corner. My heart raced as I replayed the last few days in my mind, each encounter with him igniting a fire I thought had long been extinguished. Standing at the kitchen sink, washing dishes felt like a futile attempt to cleanse my thoughts. The chime of the doorbell jolted me from my reverie. I dried my hands hastily on a dish towel, glancing toward the door. My grandfather had gone out for groceries, leaving me alone with my thoughts and him. I hesitated, wondering if it was wise to open the door, but curiosity got the better of me. When I swung it open, I was met with a sight that sent a jolt through me. My ex-husband stood there, looking older and wearier than I remembered. His eyes flickered with surprise before settling into an expression of cautious familiarity. "Hey," he said, his voice low and tentative. "What are you doing here?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. "I came to talk," he replied, shifting his weight uneasily from one foot to the other. I sighed inwardly. This was not what I needed right now. "About what?" He hesitated again before stepping inside. "About us, about everything." I crossed my arms defensively. "There's nothing to discuss." He looked around the living room filled with memories, some good, some painful, and then back at me. It's been a while since we've talked like this. Because we have nothing left to say. I tried to sound firm but felt the cracks in my resolve. Maybe, he conceded slowly. But I still care about you. His words hung between us like a fragile thread ready to snap at any moment. Just then, footsteps echoed down the hallway and my heart sank as he appeared, my grandfather's friend, his presence commanding yet comforting all at once. "Is everything all right?" he asked, concern etched across his face as he glanced between us. I swallowed hard, caught in an unexpected triangle of emotions that pulled me in different directions. "We were just talking." "About what?" The question was innocent enough but felt loaded with implications. My ex-husband cleared his throat awkwardly. "Just catching up." The tension escalated as silence enveloped us like a thick fog. My grandfather's friend stepped closer, instinctively placing himself between us as if sensing the underlying conflict brewing beneath the surface. "Maybe we should all sit down," he suggested gently. As we moved toward the living room sofa, dread settled in my stomach like lead. This wasn't how I envisioned this moment unfolding. It felt more like an intervention than a reunion. "I just wanted to see how you were doing," my ex-husband said after we sat down. His eyes darted between me and his old friend. "I'm fine," I replied curtly. My grandfather's friend shifted slightly closer to me on the couch, offering silent support without saying a word. It was comforting yet complicated, a reminder of where my heart had begun to wander amidst all this chaos. "I know things ended badly between us." My ex-husband's voice trailed off as if searching for words that wouldn't come easily. "It's not just about how things ended." My voice came out stronger than expected. Perhaps it was fueled by frustration or anger, feelings that had simmered beneath the surface for too long. "What do you mean?" He leaned forward slightly as if trying to bridge an emotional gap that seemed insurmountable. "It's about moving forward." My gaze flickered toward my grandfather's friend for just a moment before returning to him again. "I'm trying to build something new." "And what about us?" His question lingered heavily in the air around us, drawing deeper lines of tension into our already strained dynamic. "That part is over." Each word felt like an anchor pushing me deeper into uncertain waters filled with memories both sweet and bitter. "I still want you back." The desperation in his tone made me flinch inwardly. It was reminiscent of past arguments where emotions spiraled out of control, leaving scars behind instead of healing them. Before I could respond, my grandfather's friend spoke up again, calm and measured. "We all make choices based on where we find ourselves in life." His gaze shifted toward me, then back at my ex-husband again before continuing softly. "Sometimes those choices lead us down paths we never expected." The weight of those words hung heavy among us as silence reclaimed its hold once more, a silence filled with unvoiced thoughts and lingering doubts threatening to spill over into chaos if not addressed soon enough. Just then, another unexpected twist unfurled itself when my grandfather walked through the door carrying grocery bags. Surprise washed over his face upon seeing all three of us seated together, a tableau frozen in time reflecting tangled relationships laid bare under fluorescent lights illuminating truths too raw for comfort. "What's going on here?" he asked cautiously while setting down bags filled with produce onto the kitchen counter nearby, his eyes narrowing slightly as they darted between each person present before landing finally on mine. A question lingering unasked yet palpable nonetheless within those familiar depths, searching for answers hidden beneath layers built over years spent together navigating life's complexities hand in hand until now. "We were just talking about old times," I managed weakly amidst rising tensions bubbling beneath our collective surface, readying themselves for eruption at any moment should someone dare speak too freely without thought given first. My grandfather frowned but didn't press further, opting for silence, a choice laden heavily with unspoken judgment echoing through every corner, filling spaces left vacant by unresolved feelings swirling around like ghosts haunting forgotten memories, waiting patiently until summoned forth once more. As night began creeping across Portland, casting shadows longer than daylight allowed earlier hours would permit, it became clear that decisions loomed larger than ever before, demanding reckoning from each person present, whether willing or not. In that moment, surrounded by familiar faces tinged now with uncertainty, I understood one thing clearly. Whatever path lay ahead would require confronting truths hidden deep within hearts entwined together against odds stacked high against them, ever finding solace amidst tumultuous storms raging outside their fragile walls. And so began another chapter unfolding within lives intertwined, forever marked by choices made along winding roads traveled both together yet apart, leading ultimately toward unknown futures waiting patiently beyond horizons blurred by regrets lingering long after daylight faded away. The morning light streamed through the window, illuminating the chaos of emotions swirling in the room. I lay there, heart racing, tangled in sheets and thoughts. The reality of the moment crashed down on me as I turned to see him beside me, a peaceful expression on his face. It felt surreal, this intimacy we had stumbled into, a world away from the judgments and expectations that loomed outside these walls. Then came the sound of a key turning in the lock. Panic surged through me as I recognized the familiar jingle of my ex-husband's keys. My mind raced, searching for a way to hide, to escape this moment that felt like a trap closing in around us. "What do we do?" I whispered urgently, my voice barely above a breath. He stirred slightly but didn't wake fully. My heart pounded louder with each second that ticked by, knowing full well what was about to unfold. "Get dressed," I urged him softly, my voice trembling with fear and urgency. But it was too late. The door swung open, and there he stood, my ex-husband, eyes wide with disbelief as he took in the scene before him. The shock morphed into something darker as his gaze flicked between us, and an unspoken understanding settled into the air like a heavy fog. "What is going on here?" His voice broke through the silence like thunder. I scrambled to sit up, pulling sheets around me as if they could shield me from his judgment or anger. "It's not what it looks like," I stammered, but even as I spoke those words, I knew they fell flat against the reality of our situation. He stepped further into the room, disbelief giving way to anger. "Not what it looks like. You're in bed with him." His voice rose, echoing off the walls of my grandfather's home, a place that had once felt safe but now seemed to close in around us like a cage. "Please," I pleaded, searching for any trace of understanding in his eyes. "This is complicated." "Complicated?" He laughed bitterly. "You think this is complicated? You're living with your grandfather and sleeping with his friend. This isn't just complicated, it's reckless." My stomach twisted at his words, the truth wrapped tightly around them like barbed wire. I glanced at my companion beside me. He remained still but tense, aware that our secret had shattered under the weight of exposure. "Just leave," I said finally, my voice steadier than I felt inside. "We can talk later." "No," he shot back defiantly. "We're talking now." He took another step forward. Tension hung thick in the air between us all. "What did you expect?" he continued harshly. "That you could just run away from everything? That you could start over without consequences?" I took a deep breath, trying to find my footing amid this storm brewing within our lives. The man beside me shifted slightly but remained silent, an unwilling participant caught between two worlds colliding violently together. "I'm not running away," I said firmly now, meeting my ex-husband's gaze head-on despite every instinct telling me to look away. "I'm trying to find myself again." "By jumping into bed with someone else?" He scoffed incredulously. "It's not just about that." The words burst forth before I could restrain them, an eruption of frustration mixed with vulnerability spilling out into this charged atmosphere. "What is it then?" He crossed his arms defiantly, a man cornered by emotions he couldn't control any longer. "It's about connection," I replied softly after a pause, a truth that felt both liberating and terrifying when spoken aloud amidst such chaos. about finding comfort where there was none. His expression shifted slightly, a flicker of understanding breaking through layers of hurt and anger, but it vanished just as quickly as it appeared. "I can't believe you'd do this." His voice dropped low again, disappointment laced every word he uttered now, each syllable piercing deeper than any accusation could have done alone. The silence stretched painfully long between us until finally breaking when my companion stirred again beside me, a reminder that life continued even amid turmoil surrounding us all. "Maybe we should talk outside," he suggested quietly but firmly, the calm amidst our stormy exchange drawing attention back toward him as if seeking some semblance of peace within this shattered moment. My ex-husband hesitated before nodding slowly, an unspoken agreement passed between us all, a fragile truce born out of necessity rather than trust or understanding lingering behind closed doors still echoing with whispers shared only moments before. As we stepped out into daylight filtering through leaves swaying gently overhead, a stark contrast against turmoil raging within, I couldn't shake off feeling exposed beneath scrutiny from both men who had once held significant places within my life now intertwined by choices made recklessly without foresight or thought given toward consequences looming ahead like shadows cast long upon pathways, yet traveled ahead. Outside stood my grandfather watching silently from afar, his presence grounding yet unsettling at once, as if sensing ripples created by choices made without consideration for those whose lives would be forever altered by decisions taken hastily amidst emotional upheaval surrounding us all. And so we stood there facing one another, the weight of unspoken truths hanging heavily upon shoulders burdened by realities none wished to confront openly while navigating uncertain futures waiting patiently beyond horizons blurred by regrets lingering long after daylight faded away.